And welcome to the Funniest Person podcast presented by Acme. Every week here, we're going to be talking to some local comics about a little amateur contest that's been going on for 30 years and happens to have been the gateway into comedy for some of the funniest people in the entire world. And we're going to have a bunch of them on. It'll be great. And our guest today is somebody the first name I thought of when this was pitched to me, because our guest here has done not only done the contest more than anyone else, but was in the finals with me. And what's more important than me? Only one thing. Brandi Brown, everybody.
Hey.
Hello, Brandi.
Hello.
Welcome. Yeah, first person that I thought of, because, our finals, we'll get to that chronologically. We'll work up to the big 09 year. I think that was 09.
Yeah, I think it was 09.
It was. We were in the finals together, but you had done it before, and I didn't know until then. Of course, later we started working here together. You'd done it a bunch before. In fact, I believe, do you not hold the record for person who has done the contest the most?
Possibly, yeah, because I would do it and then go back to school, out to college, and then it was just like a summer thing. Like if I could go back to that point in time where I had no concept of like how comedy worked, I would just tell jokes. I was like, well, this seemed like easy. Like, I don't know, like Elle Woods, be like, well, is it hard? No, I don't know. Like, you just show up. I had no expectations. No one knew who I was, and it was just fantastic.
Right, because a lot of people who come to it it's interesting about the thing about the contest is that there's, let's say, maybe there's sometimes 200, 250 contestants. There's a chunk of them that come from the open mic scene that have been working all year, and they've been thinking about this contest a lot. But the majority of the people are just like, hey, I want to sign up for this contest.
Yeah, a lot of them it seems to be drunk people who showed up for a different thing, and then their friends are like, you're funny at work. And I have a theory about the funny person at the office, which I can get into later.
I definitely want to.
But basically, well, I'll just get into it now. Basically, my philosophy is the only difference besides like the actual technical craft of being a stage performer, but the difference between a stand-up comedian to me and the funny, like the office funny person, is that all comedy is inside jokes. So basically, all the office person does is their audience is primed for the inside jokes about stuff at the office. And stand-up comedians have to take those inside jokes and make them apply to a broader audience. And so if you can translate that office story to a broader audience, you'll be a great stand-up. But like a lot of people don't do that. And I love analogies, so that tends to be where I can like make the translation. But yeah, so. You're
totally right. And I heard another comic say one time, I think I read it. I don't think it said it to me. It was like a famous comedian, and they said that the hardest part about stand-up comedy that people don't realize is the context. That the joke is basically the same, but in the office, everyone shares a context, right? We all know this person at the office, and we all have these, like you said, these inside jokes. But the hard part about stand-up is not the punchline; it's getting all these people who don't know each other to have the exact same context.
Yep.
And you're totally right. And so if you can just be your same funny self at the office in a way that people here understand, yeah, there's really not a huge difference.
Yeah, and that's the same reason why a lot of Twitter comedians don't translate. I mean, I love Twitter. I'm always on Twitter. You know, I'm on Twitter constantly. But like, yeah, sometimes I'll just be like, yeah, I'm not explaining the context for anything. That joke will literally be for like 3 of my 20,000 followers.
Totally, and
don't
it works
brag,
great
but like
when it gets retweeted into a niche and everyone gets it. But like on a stage when you do it and it's like 3 people get it. And
I have one time taken a joke, which we could talk about later when we get to the chronology, and one of my earliest jokes I still occasionally will throw out was from Twitter in 2007. Yep.
Early Twitter. So your first contest, you said you're on the fence. It's 2001 or 2.
2002. So here's what happened. In college, I went to college at Williams College in Massachusetts, and it is a liberal arts college. Does not have like summer school, but their rule is that if you drop a course, you have to have like 4 courses per semester. If you drop a course, you have to make it up either during the next semester, you have to take 5 classes, which is insane, or make it up like during the summer. So I dropped a course during the spring of that year. And so I took a course at Metro State here in Minnesota. I was coming home, and it was comedy writing.
Oh.
So I was
Do you remember who the teacher was?
It was this bald guy.
Not like a comic or anybody that we would know, or a theater person.
No. He seemed to be a theater person, probably. I could look it up. I'm sure they have those in archives. But I think he was more of a theater person. But it was about comedy writing. And so one of the assignments was that we had to go see comedy or something like that. And it wasn't just like, it could be like comedic essays. It didn't have to be stand-up. And at one point he read all my stuff and he's like, have you considered doing stand-up? And I was like, honestly, when I was 8, I kind of wanted to do it because I saw like a Nickelodeon thing where they had like child comics. And I don't think I've ever, that. It was like this thing, I'm like, I could do that. And so I was like practicing bits in the pool at school and they were not funny. It was stuff where it was me being 8 and be like, so I was like trying to take adult comedy and make it child, like, oh, I was like at the playground and people were like, yeah, keep working at it. Love the new stuff. Like even children who did not know anything about comedy were saying that. And then I just kind of forgot that. But he's like, have you considered doing stand-up? I was like, no, not really. I'm just trying to like get this course pass fail and like go back to school. And so I looked on the Acme website and it was like contest, win $1,000. And I was like, $1,000, that seems like a lot of money. I could use that. Yes. Okay, fine. So instead of going to the show, I was like, well, 2 birds, 1 stone.
Right.
Let me just enter this contest. And mind you, I was like, how hard could this be? This professor says he likes my writing. It's $1,000. Like, I just assumed that, like, the thought of open mic, I don't even think I knew about that.
A lot of people, when they ask you how you get into stand-up, right, they have no idea there's an open mic scene that you get into.
Yeah.
I think they think that you, like, come here, it's like improv, like you take some classes, and then they tell you you're ready, and you do your first show, and you're, like, getting paid.
Yeah. I think when I was actually 8 or 10, I called, like, the club here, or whatever club. I called one of the clubs, and I was like, can I, like, how do you get on stage? And they were just like, oh, you come to, like, the same thing that you would tell adults, and I was like, okay, so I just need to convince my mom. And my mom's like, sure, like, she'll just humor me until, like, it burns out. If I keep pursuing it, she might let me. But, so I show up, and it was my first thing, so you know, I didn't tell a lot of people. I just told my mom I was doing this. I didn't drive at the time, so my mom had to drive me. And I did the set. And the first person I met, you know, I get on stage and it was 3 minutes. And I just kind of like, I typed out all my set. I didn't plan to read it on stage, but you should know that I did speech and debate. Like
we've talked about that.
We both did.
We were both speech debate kids.
I went to debate camp. I went to speech camp. And then in college, I did parliamentary debate, which was more like low-key chill. So like I am very comfortable public speaking. So I looked at the thing, I had my notes, but I generally had memorized it. I don't even know if I took them on stage. And after the set, like I didn't win that night, but I was like Lizzie Cooperman was in my prelim.
Who's
round.
now a fairly prominent comedy writer, has been on many late night shows.
Yeah.
Very funny.
I think she had a joke about like Superman coming and being like against like very like I just remember that. And I remember she was super nice and she's like, hey, I haven't seen you around. I was like, no, it's my first time on stage. She's like, okay, well, you know, we have Pepito's open mic. You should come to that. And I was like, oh, like I took notes. And I was like, well, I'd have to ask my mom to give me a ride, but I didn't think anything of it.
Yeah.
And, you know, they say the thing where it's like, oh, just because you didn't win tonight, you can advance. And I was like, man, like, I was like, I could have done better on that. Like, I'm super competitive. So I was like, I could have gone better. I had a good chance. Like, I was also delusional enough to think, like, I could probably beat everybody here. Like, you know, you have to have that.
You do kind of have to have that a little bit.
Ego.
If I would have known how hard comedy was the first year I did it, I don't know if I would have stuck around with it.
So then I got into semis and I found I was cleaning out some boxes and I actually found that semis letter from Acme. I have a picture of it on my phone, but I know that Mitch Hansen was in that round.
Wow. Was it a literal letter at that point, probably, right?
It was an actual letter. Like it was signed by, I forgot it was a woman. It was not Sarah. But yeah, it was signed by me and I was like, oh, I didn't advance. At that point, like when you get to semis, it's people who have stage presence. And at that point, I was also super, super nervous.
So you're more nervous on the second?
Yeah, because I was like, oh, it's a contest. Like, here's the thing. I can like be like just talking backstage before a show. And just like people are like, how are you calm? I'll just walk out the same way that I'm talking to you now. But any type of contest of any kind, I used to run track year round. I used to shake in the blocks. I get like super like too much adrenaline before competitions. And I have a friend who's a violist and he says it's the same thing when he does music competitions. Like he plays with the Minnesota Orchestra. It's just I get ramped up. And
sure. Would that also apply for like if there was like a last comic audition?
Yep.
Or
yeah,
which is essentially a competition, right? Or even just if there was a Letterman booker or a Conan booker or something, and you know that it feels like a competition because like there's only two spots.
That too. Yeah, those two. I think that if there are any stakes beyond like do a good job
versus if 1,000 people, just a regular set, you feel about the same.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, it's just a big show.
Yeah.
Which is kind of how I feel. I always think it's funny that people are like, weren't you nervous with that huge crowd? I'm like, oh, you mean when it was way easier?
Yeah, you mean like when, are you nervous when you have to do like your office job? No, I'm not.
yeah, exactly. No, it is different when you're like.
Yeah. But when you have a performance review the next week, then you get a little nervous. So.
And then also, I'm guessing now you're like, oh, dang, okay, I did do pretty well in this. Now I have a shot at this. Now I
Right.
almost like have something to
Money
lose.
is on the line. Again,
Yeah.
$1,000 is
Now
really
it's not
what
a
we're
lark.
going for.
You know, before it was like a
Yeah.
lottery ticket. Now it's like, oh, I'm in this.
Yeah, I didn't know how it worked. I was like, I'm just going to show up. I don't know these people. Like, I have, like, a professor told me I was funny. I know I'm funny. Most people were like, when did you know you were funny? I was like, I never thought I wasn't funny. Like, I know when I'm being, like, that's not a good joke or something, but I was like, yeah, I'm funny.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell people.
Most comics are just kind of funny off stage, even if they're quiet
Mhm.
when they do speak up. Like Ben Sandel's a quiet guy,
Yeah.
but when he chimes in, it's pretty hilarious. He's a funny guy. you
Yeah.
know? No, do you think you did worse? When I say like your performance, do you think you were like not as good in your semifinal round as you were in that first one because you were nervous?
I think I was probably the same.
Okay.
But, like, probably the quality was
Competition was stiffer, right?
tighter. And, like, yeah, I don't know how Lizzie ended up doing that year, but, like, yeah, I think there was, like, she's the only person I remember, because she also, like, she did well, she won, but she was, like, really nice to me afterwards and stuff
Famously
like that.
a nice person.
Yeah, and,
Lovely person.
like, I remember her distinctly. And also another woman in the contest.
Sure, yeah. It does tend to be a bit of a sausage fest.
Oh, I have another story about the contest. Here's a thing I just remembered. So I also interned at this magazine called Minnesota Law and Politics here.
Oh.
And one year, and that was either 2003 or 2004, they had me interview Elaine Thompson,
Oh, interesting. I love Elaine Thompson.
who won the contest.
Yes.
And didn't she famously have a joke about the Packers?
She had a great Packers joke, and she had a really funny joke about her dentist having a big dick that I always sticks in my head and is really funny when she tells it.
Yeah.
But you're right, though. It does tend to be there. I think a lot more guys just like sign up for the contest
Mhm.
because I do think there's like a dumb dude like I could do that. I think is a
Yeah.
more common like dude thing
Yeah.
because I would be interested to break it down, but I would imagine just the number of signups is at least 2 to 1 guys.
Yeah, I've never really seen a woman even like do like horrifically badly. Like if I have like
That's
stories
true.
of and this is in general with like women applying for jobs. Like we don't apply for jobs typically unless we meet like if there's like 9 criteria, we'll meet 7.
Sure.
And like
That's a
men
really
will
good
apply with
point.
like 1. And they'll be like, yeah, I can read. Like,
That's a really
I
interesting
can be
point.
CEO.
I've seen, because we've also judged the contest. We've seen a million hosting. We've seen a million of them, and some people are incredibly impressive their first time out, but you see some people just utterly flame out. It is almost always dudes who are the total flame outs. That's a really interesting point.
I mean, there is that infamous open micer woman who dressed in a burqa and pulled a gun out, and I don't think she was in the contest. Cause I feel like that open mic time when everyone's like, "Get the fuck out of here! Get the fuck out of comedy! Get the
Yes.
fuck out of this state!"
I was not here that week.
I heard about that. And I was like, I am honestly surprised no one got shot. Like, kudos to Acme for no one getting shot.
Yeah, that was not the contest. That was
Yeah, that was an open mic.
And we're gonna do a manager thing where I'm gonna talk to all the managers to get their story because they've all seen. We've seen the ones we've hosted and the one we've been in, but they've seen all the crazy
Yeah,
ones.
I've seen I was there for the infamous Ben Sandel, John DeBoer, Rashomon night with the woman who was crying. This was not obviously the contest, but she was fine all show for she was fine during my set. Typically, if someone's gonna go, the MC will notice. They'll be like, that person, no clue. And so this woman just started they poured her wine and she suddenly just freaked the fuck out and just looked at Ben Seidel and she's like, "You're not funny." And I'm backstage and I just hear it was enough where I heard the wrong voice and it was a level of concern from Ben Seidel. It wasn't like a normal heckler concern where people were like, "What the fuck are you doing?" It was like Ben being like, "Are you okay?"
Yeah.
And then it was just chaos ensued and they clearly pulled her out and then you hear applause and then Ben got off stage and he looked shell shocked. I'm like, "What happened?" He's just like, "Mm." And I was like, okay. So I get on stage and I'm like, I literally was like, I need to know some mess. I'm nosy. I was like, audience, what happened? And they were just like, I was like, oh my God, this is going to be an incredible story. Mind you, John DeBoer is recording that night. So,
Perfect.
So I get off stage and I think Mike Lester was there that day or something like that. And what had happened is she they poured her wine. She flipped out. They pulled her out and then she starts crying into the manager, John, Big John. Just burly military dude crying and saying, "Go get my husband, go get my husband."
Yes.
And then they go, fine. They go get the husband in the front row and he's just chill. He's in front. He's enjoying, he's doing his tab and enjoying the show. And they're like, "Excuse me, sir, your wife wants you." And he's like, "Wife? This was a first date."
Yes.
And then for some reason, so he goes out and he's arguing with the woman. And then a third audience member who had no role in this decides to go out and she wants to mediate this fight for some reason. And she was like crying, and you know, he was like first date, last date, and then he turns to like one of the managers and says, "Are you gonna take care of him?" I think, and then he's like, "No, I would like get her home safely." And she leaves. They like call a taxi, and she leaves to go up the stairs, and then you just see her tumble back down the stairs.
Yeah,
and it was incredible. I think Nick, who is a saint, was like, "Nope, we'll just intervene now and like get her into a cab." But I just remember that the best part about that is like every person in the club had a different angle from it. So I was the one who was like, "I saw Ben, I heard it backstage," and then Dan Schlissel was like, "I have audio."
That's right. Yeah, because I just remember the moment of the woman saying, "Get my husband" or whatever, and the guy saying, "Husband, this is our first date," which is a real Twilight Zone moment.
Anyway, I forgot what we were talking about, but just we've seen some shit.
Yes. So then contest. So you do the contest. You get bounced in the semifinals.
Yeah.
And then when do you decide you're going to do it again?
So
the
if
next
it's 2002, then I ended up going on medical leave. And I just did it the next summer. And what I would do, I feel like it's safe to say this now, statute of the limitations are up, is I would say that I was busy all summer so that I could go the last week of August.
There's also nothing against that rule. I always tell people you can just say I want to go in August if you want.
I didn't know you could say I'm like, I'm busy, because I'd just be like anxious and waiting, and I just wanted to like the quick turnaround. So I would do it every year. And I remember also the first year I did it, maybe, or one of the earlier years, I know who was MC the first year I did it. It was Maggie Ferris. One of the subsequent years, it was Shannon. And like Eric Allen was there another year. I didn't know who was featuring, but I remember at one point I was in the green room and like someone's like, "You don't seem like you do comedy." And I'm like, "Are you a judge?" And that's literally a thing I said. And Shannon was like, "Ha ha," because the way that Shannon laughs. And I was just like, I'm serious. I'm like, because I get super nervous before, and I just need to like focus and calm down. And at some point at this point, this ends with me being on stage like 15 times before finals. This is every single time I've ever been on stage for stand-up, 15 times.
Yeah.
But at some point, like, I remember Eric Allen grabbed me, and he's like in the bar area. He's like, "Come over here." And I was like, "Yeah." And like Tom Steffen was there, and they're like, "Yeah, you're really good. You should consider coming to open mics." And I feel like Sarah may have been there, manager Sarah.
I think Sarah was.
And I was like, "Do I want to do that though?" And they're like, "You should come." And I was like, "No, I'm just here for the contest, you know." And then I would just go back to school. So I just kept doing it over and over and over again. And I think there is video of like one of the years I did it. Like some of my friends went like 2007. And in 2005, I was interning at an ad agency. I'll just say it was Fallon. And so I told my coworkers, because it's all also like, you know, I was like, I do stand-up comedy. I wasn't like, I'm a comedian. I'm just like, it's a thing I do.
Well, this is what you did. You've done it several times.
And I'm like, I'm in the contest, and you know, and our managers were like, "Cool, let's just make it a company outing." I'm like, "Awesome." So they like got us all drinks, and they like, you know, brought everyone to the club. And I don't know if you have ever experienced your own manager getting kicked out of your stand-up comedy show.
Wow.
But I have, and I was like, "God damn it." And they were like the ushers had to come talk to him, and all the interns who were all like 20 somethings were fine. It was like these like older managers who were completely hammered. But they, you know, it was kind of cool that they brought all of us to the show. And I think maybe I advanced that year to semis. I don't know. I was in semis off and on. Some years I wouldn't make it. Some years I would.
Did you make the semis? Like, it was like, you don't remember exactly how many times, but you didn't make it every time, but it was like frequent that you would make the semis.
Frequently enough.
And would you do a different set, I assume, every year? Or did you ever do some of the same jokes?
Yeah, I thought that, well, here's another reason why I may have actually lost in the first, besides like the obvious, it was like my second time on stage. I didn't know that you could do the same material. A lot of people don't, and so I always tell people it's going to be different judges every time. Like I always tell people, if you've written something funnier now that's like the best joke you've ever written since the last time you went up, put your new joke in. But like, you don't got to do anything different. So actually, I'm certain that semi set was less funny, because I basically took a essay, which I did at my high school. We had to do something called senior speeches, where we just talk about whatever we talk about. And I did a funny thing about my college visit. So I talked about that in like Maine, where I like saw a bear or something like that. And it was, you know, it's a funnier essay than a stand-up routine. So I did that. And yeah, I think I did that a couple times, and then I think I started repeating stuff. I don't know. I did not talk to anyone in comedy about this. Like, I had no idea how it worked. I had no idea how judging worked. And I was just like, I would ask them, I was like, hey, do we see scores? No. Do we do that? Like, is this, when will we find out? That's it. Like, so I had no idea how it worked beyond what.
Sure. So you were definitely doing different sets at least every between rounds if you made the semis, and maybe you could, like, in your mind, maybe you'd repeat a joke that you did 2 years ago in one of your new sets.
Oh yeah, like from year to year I would do it, but like sometimes I think probably I repeated jokes or repeated sets towards like the later end, but yeah, so many of them blur together.
Sure.
That I think that I know that the first joke that I like still use, I have one that I can't remember how it went. I had one about an imaginary boyfriend and a courtroom sketch artist, which I just forgot how that one works. That one I did use like post contest.
I think I remember seeing you do that like at mics and stuff.
I think there was someone who like did it on Last Comic Standing, like a version of it that was too close where I was like, I'm just gonna kill this joke. But the one that I still even will throw sometimes was 2007. I tweeted this, and it was when the tornado went through downtown Minneapolis, and I said, this tornado went like, it skipped the side, it went like straight up, like it skipped 35W and went like straight up Portland Avenue. And I go, which like tells you that even like a tornado knows it's faster to take the side streets or something like that. And it was a great tweet, and I was like, I'll just throw that one in a set, and it worked. And I still occasionally do it, even when they did that construction on 35, and I was like, I can't believe this joke is still working occasionally. Like,
it's a real damning indictment of MnDOT that joke continues to be so accurate.
That one and the joke I tell now about like Minnesota Nice and Minnesota sports teams, which I literally do not like that joke, and I will just tell, I'm like, I can't believe this joke still works like a decade. Like, why is this still happening? But yeah, so I did it, and then I just was like, well, I'm pretty good, and people at the club seem like, to want me to show up, and I literally was just focused on the $1,000. I went back to college, and then I was kind of known on campus, not like, well, like people were like, oh, I heard you do stand-up. I'm like, yeah, I do this contest, and we're in the north eastern corner of Massachusetts, so we're like an hour from Albany, and I didn't have a car at the time, or even like I had a car when I went back. I had a car, and it's like I'm not gonna go to an open mic in Albany. Like it's so far away by myself, and yeah, so I would just do the contest every year, and I think because I would just do that and then like disappear and then show up every year. Apparently a rumor started, which I found out from Mary Mack after like I started going to open mics, that people thought I lived in St. Cloud, and that's why I did not come to.
Oh, which by the way, there's no rule against.
Yeah, which is also weird that like St. Cloud, I don't know how that is a specific place they decided I live, but
I'm glad for you that you don't live in St. Cloud.
No, I'm glad for me too.
I'm glad for everyone who doesn't live in St. Cloud. That's every day I wake up and I say thank the Lord.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's funny. But you can see where, because people have so much. Comics are such, but both gossips, but also paranoid. Like, I remember, here's a funny rumor that you'll appreciate, that I genuinely believe this. Do you remember, he still comes out all the time, Bryan, really nice gentleman, comes to a lot of shows, older guy, vision impaired. And so he gets like Metro mobility rides here sometimes. Wonderful guy. He's been coming to shows here forever. He used to always hang out on Mondays. He would always show up early for open mic and get dinner like all the comics did. I genuinely believed when I first started coming here that he was a plant, and that Lewis gave a guy free dinner and drinks to sit back there and eavesdrop on all the comics and listen to find out what everybody was saying. So sometimes people would start talking smack about somebody, and I'd be like, the guy's here, don't say anything. And I didn't know that he wasn't making eye contact with people because I didn't know he was vision impaired. I thought he was just playing it super cool. So I thought this guy was like ace undercover agent. And now he's my friend and I know him, and I feel ridiculous that I wasn't just like, hey.
I would actually pay someone to do that to new comics. Like, I would love that. Actually, I don't come out enough, so I could probably be the plant. Like,
just hang out and see what people are saying.
Like, they'd be like, did you see Shannon spying on us? I'm like, I'm Brandi again. Once again, I'm not Shannon Paul. Like, Jesus.
So the first year that you made the finals was the first time you made the finals the year that I was in the finals?
2009. Yeah, so about that. So then they were like, oh, so I found out that, what year? That was actually, I think, the year I was interning at a different ad agency or freelancing for them, where my boss also got completely shit-faced before coming to this show. Like, just don't invite ad execs to your comedy show.
They do drink really hard.
They drink so hard. And he, like, I remember I was at the W Hotel, and I think I saw the email. At that point, we've switched from letters to emails. The email came down, and I'm like, oh, I'm in finals. So they're like, shots for you. And I was like, yeah. And it was like one of those weird party nights where, like, I call them can't hardly wait nights, where you're like, these people are not going to remember this night. But this night was crazy. Like, at some point, I ended up in a hotel room hanging out with all these people, and, like, they were doing whippets. And I'm like, I don't know why I'm here. I'm like, this is fun. Like, my boss invited me to this party. Like, it was just crazy. So I finally got into finals. So I show up, and I remember we're sitting on the disgusting couches that used to be in the bar area. That's where you would meet up every time. The couches in the bar.
It would say in the email, meet by the couches.
Meet by the couches. And I remember someone standing there and being like, okay, I think we have all the people. And I just remember other comics being like, no, there are only 4 people here.
You were the only one who wasn't a regular open micer.
Yeah. They're like, and then like, whoever the manager, it was probably Sarah, was like, no, everyone's here. So then I'm back, and I'm like super nervous, and everyone was just like talking to each other, and they knew each other. And I just remember at some point Brian Shelsby, who was there and not in the contest, he was just there. Because isn't that Brian Shelsby just there?
I hope he's doing well.
And he's like, he seems to be doing well. And he was like, you don't seem like a comic. And again, I was like,
that sounds like a Shelsby thing to say.
I was like, we're not on stage. Why do people keep saying this? Why would I waste performance energy backstage? I'm like, it's like what? And we did the contest, and I think I probably went early or something like that. And at that point, I was super nervous, but I was still like delusional enough to think I had a chance to win, even though in hindsight, like, no fucking way. It was like Gabe, Noah. I think we're the only class of people who are still all doing stand-up, by the way.
I agree. We had, I think our finals year was and I'm obviously a little biased, but I really think it was the best year of finals people, where you had John Conroy won. He beat Gabe Noah by 1 point.
Mm-hmm.
Zach Coulter beat me. And then I had 4th and you had 5th. And I think Zach, I don't know if Zach still does stand up, but he certainly did stand up for a long time afterwards, and as a theater guy, and did a lot of Valley Meadows with Chris Knutson.
Yeah.
But yeah, everybody in our class kind of immediately went on to start working and mostly continue working, where most years there's like an old lady who tells really dirty jokes, or like, you know, some charming 90-year-old guy, or some college kid who's kind of quirky, but he never does it again. We didn't have any of that. It was all people who were like eyes on the prize.
And I just want to say that as the winner of that year, as the one person,
I had never been paid. I had never been paid,
because everyone would be like, they'd all been paid.
I had never been paid,
well,
and I'll tell you why I know I'd never been paid.
I got second place.
No, I'll tell you why I know it, because I would host at Joke Joint, but I would turn down money from Ken Reed. I told him, because he asked me to host there, and I said I want to do the contest. Because when I moved here to start doing comedy, I moved here at the end of August. So the contest, I couldn't enter it, but I was like, oh, dang, I just missed this thing. So that became, for my first year, my entire goal was to win the contest.
Yeah.
And so when I was told you couldn't get paid, Ken Reed was like, I want you to MC. And I was like, but I want to do this thing. And he was like, well, don't be a dummy. And I was like, you can't pay me.
Yeah.
And I would be really open about, like, I would tell him, like, no, because also, I love Ken. It was like $25 to host a week.
I didn't want to lose $1,000.
So in my mind, it was, I would make, if I would have gotten paid from Ken, I would have made like $100. And I was like, I'll risk it. I think I can get this $1,000 if I practice all year. And then of course I got definitively 4th.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like I was so close.
Yeah, and I think my mom was there, and my mom has a theater background, and my mom's not one too men's words, and she was like, yeah, you clearly lost. Like, it was very obvious, Brandi. They were better than you. And I was like, yeah, well, you know, I still got this giant Sam Adams Adirondack chair. Like, I love the prizes too of the contest, because it would be like at one point I got a refrigerator in semis. Like, it was so inconsistent.
That's a big semis
it
prize.
Was so inconsistent what you would get sometimes. You'd be like, the opening round would be like, oh, you got some Renaissance Fair tickets, which I've also found.
I've won Renaissance Fair tickets.
Yeah. Or you get like a T-shirt or whatever. They were like rummaging around and back. But there was one year where like I got a fridge, and I think I like sold it to Shannon for something. But it had to have been like 2009, where it was like really, really weirdly nice prizes.
I got club level wild tickets.
Oh, wow.
4. So I took me and my wife, and Wayne Burfind and his wife went and sat on club level. And I was like, I remember they being way better than the 3rd and 2nd place prizes. So I was like, well, if I'm not going to win, I think 4th might be the way to go.
Yeah, it was a nice Adirondack chair too, that like recently, I have a picture of it when I first got it. Because I think that like Cy maybe helped me carry out to my car.
I was going to say, was it assembled?
It was just like a folding, and Cy carried out to my car, and he was like, good job. And like people were like really, really nice. And they were like, yeah, like, we didn't know who you were. And they're
It's
like,
definitely when I met you. For sure, the first time I met you.
And then I think Eric Allen was like, well, you have to come to Mike's now. And so when I say that, like, when I say how long I've been doing comedy, I actually started in September of 2009.
I think that's absolutely fair.
Because otherwise, it's just like, that's when I did it.
No, I think that's because then starting on that, you were here most Mondays. And then, you know, Joke Join and other places.
So then I was like, well, so then once I like started doing open mics, I was like, okay, so these dudes had been doing it for a while before I got there.
Mm-hmm.
And this was my 15th time on stage. I do know it was 15 times, so I would always like count. So I was like, if it's this 15th time on stage, I think I can get that $1,000 now. I think I can get it. So I went into another year and then Abshire and Knutson had the rivalry, and they were just like, why is Brandi still doing this?
Here's the thing. So there was a brief moment where I was debating waiting another year to get paid because I was like, I really, really wanted to win the contest. I really wanted to win it. But I remember being like, I don't know. I remember I'd gotten a couple of offers, and I remember being back and forth, and I was like, man, Nate and Knutson Nate had decided to wait. Knutson was going to do it, and I was like, well, even if I do really well, like, there's a decent chance I'm going to lose to these guys.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just decided, like, in September or October, I was like, I'm taking gigs.
Yeah. I did get paid under the table a couple times at like Club Underground, but like, because Josh is like, I'm not going to let you not get paid. I'm like, fine. But like, I was like, well, now that I know the secret of secret, just be quiet about it. Like,
well, I think there's also fewer, like back in the day, there was more work for newer comics, whereas now I don't think, like, yeah, I think people tend to go amateur, and then they're like, nowadays they just like straight up get hired like someplace else, or like, or just start work, because there's like smaller clubs that you can become like a adjunct kind of person at, you know. It's like, well, obviously if you're working the door and hosting at some other club, like, you're probably we all know.
But and so I went to that.
It was just 2 clubs in town.
People were like kind of pissed at me for doing that. I don't know if pissed is they weren't pleased with me for doing it. They were like, this is Knutson and Abshire's rivalry.
I thought it made sense that I'd forgotten that you waited, but in retrospect it made sense because I remember that you had told me after we talked that you had really basically you'd only done the contest, and I was like, well, I did like a full year of open mics before my first contest, and I was like, yeah, do a full year. Yeah,
it wasn't even like pissed. It was more just like disregarding. They're like, you were going to lose. Like, it was just like other times be like, you're not going to win.
I don't know.
And I was like,
did you make the finals that year?
I think I got out in semis.
Okay, because I did not. That was the only year I didn't go to the final. I don't know. I don't know why. I think I just didn't want to. I don't think I wanted to see Nate or Chris lose.
I didn't go to finals because I knew too many people at that point. I don't do well. I'm like, I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna pretend to be happy for the. I love them both. I'm just not gonna pretend to be happy. It wasn't me.
Sure. But then you probably got hired fairly shortly after.
I got hired. So me getting hired is also a great story. So it was in 2011 in August, and I get this like text message from Derek or something, or a call or something. He's like, hey, can you call the club? And he's like, hey, so are you available next week to MC? So here's what I thought was happening. I thought someone had gotten sick and they'd run through all the MCs because I didn't audition, and they were just like,
oh, you never auditioned?
I did not. I just like what?
Interesting.
He just called me like randomly. He's like, can you do this? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, cool, we'll be here at this time. And I was like, okay.
So you didn't know you'd like been hired like
I thought all the comics had gotten sick, or you guys were all scheduled. And so I was like, well, that's crazy that they came to me, but I'm happy to pitch in and help. And so,
what an honor to.
So I did a whole. So it was supposed to be like it was a Huntsberger, but there was like 2 days where it was like Doug Benson and Huntsberger were splitting, but Doug Benson didn't want to MC, so I was just there for part of the Huntsberger thing. And so I was working with him, and it was great. It was fantastic. And then at the end of the week, I was like, well, you know, I'd love to do this in the future if you ever want to have me back. And then someone, like, Shannon's like, you work here now. And I'm like, what? Like,
that's really funny. I didn't know that.
I didn't know I got hired. Because, like, everyone else, I was like, I knew when they were auditioning people. Like, I didn't know how that happened. I remember, like, when Sus Melts, I remember when Linda got auditioned. So for me to get a random call, I assumed like that I had never seen that happen before.
It has happened before, but it's pretty rare.
I had never seen it.
Yeah.
So I was like, because like right like during that year or so that, you know, when I started regularly coming, like you got hired and I saw them audition, Conroy and Knutson and all of them, you know, Sus Melch, Linda, like I think you.
Well, Sus Melch and Linda got hired before me. They were in the year before me. Right after our contest year, they got hired because I remember thinking, oh, this was my chance. And then the next year they auditioned me, Nate, and Trevor.
Yeah.
And we all thought like it was one spot, and then we all 3 got hired at the exact same time.
Yeah, I remember when people were being auditioned, and so I was like, oh well, you know. And I knew I wasn't panicked about it because I was like, I'm also new, and I also am still getting time, so I didn't care. Like,
right. If you're getting regular time like that, you know.
And
that
I
means
also knew
something.
that everyone else had started ahead of me, so I like there was like no one I don't mean this in like the no one can stand up to me. I mean, I didn't have a peer. Like, I didn't have like someone who started at the same time I did. So it was like no real comparison of like, oh, this person, you know,
I'm falling behind or whatever.
Yeah. I didn't start getting that till like later. But
everyone develops that.
Yeah, later where I'm like, and that's why I wish I could go back where I had no concept and people were like, I'm like, is this hard? Is this contest supposed to be hard? Like, it's not. Like, just go tell some jokes.
I think that's one of the interesting things about the contest that's made it consistent all over the years is it's an amateur contest. A lot of comedy contests, it's like the first round's 3 minutes, but then it goes to 5, and then it goes to 7 or something, and it sort of winnows away. You know, 7 when you first start, big difference between 3 minutes and 7 minutes. But when it's just 3 minutes, it's kind of anybody's ball game. Like, you can kind of come out of the blue and be pretty funny for 3 minutes.
I think the scariest thing for me was actually hitting that time. Because I was like, please stop laughing at my jokes. I don't want to brag, but laughter took up a lot of my set.
That's how you make the finals.
Yeah, and I was like, please stop. Like, I'm like, I got shit to do.
And that's interesting too, because if you haven't done it so little, like I spent a lot of time timing my set because I was because it's and for people who don't know, the contest, one of the main rules, you cannot go 1 second over. You go 1 second over, your score gets cut in half, which is you're done. So you're way better to do 230 than you are to do 259. 259 is too close. Yeah. But I spent most of my pre-contest time just making sure that I knew there was a joke I could pull out. You know, where toward the end we're like, oh, I'm getting a lot of laughs. Drop that one to make sure you don't get the rest.
Yeah, and I'd type it out and just practice at home. And then I would just assume laughter by just like, you know, walking around like, okay, this is where it could land. So I kind of knew that going in, but it was that time thing. And then I did subsequently I did the funniest person with a day job because I've always still had a day job, which at that point I was still I think I was paid at Acme at this point. And that one was different because then I knew everyone involved and I had issues with scoring. And I was like, I would get so mad at that contest because what would happen is that they would not let the judges hold the score, the scorecard. So if you go first, you're automatically losing points because they're going to want to score you lower because they have to leave room for everyone else.
Yeah, when I judge contests, I actually circle the first couple of people in really light pencil because I'm trying to kind of compare them.
Yeah.
I'm kind of compare them relative to each other. And so sometimes you're like, the first person's really funny, and you're like, hold on a second, I think this person's going to be great, but what if everyone else is great? I got to adjust. Or if they're so good that I can't give them 8s because everybody else is going to get 2s.
Right. So I've been advocating and being like, you should not take the scores. You should let judges adjust scores. Because
I always. Yeah. Always do that.
Well, the funniest person in the day job, they would just take the scores immediately. So it was just annoying. But I think in Acme, you could adjust.
Oh, yeah.
And I also found out from Sarah, who said that first year I did it, apparently I had one of the highest scores going into semis, which was
interesting.
Random. And I know that's not the same people judging, but I was just like, what happened?
I
that's so wild.
Apparently I had a really, really high score in my going into semis or in the semis or whatever. But then and I beat Zach Coulter.
Oh, no, it wasn't. It was an 09 thing. I apparently went into finals with one of the higher scores or went into semis with a high score.
Yeah. It can fluctuate. And things do change in the finals because you get a big pool of judges versus 3 judges. And I think that just leaves room. Well, it just changes things with, 12 people versus 3.
And also those people really, truly I think those, you have more professional. And I mean, the judges here are people who work the club, but sometimes it's could be a new usher who's or they just, that is not my type of comedy. And I think the judges for the finals are more evaluating it truly. And
they're more focused. It's such a big show. The finals is such a big show.
And
they're
evaluating just these people they've seen because the other thing is it's when you're judging, you have to be I have to give someone a high score just because I want to make sure that they at least get to semis because it's running all summer.
Yes. Yeah, that's when I would do it. I see somebody really good. I'm like, this person really needs to be in the semis. So even if relatively their other people aren't good, I got to make sure I give them a higher one. Whereas, in the finals, it's this this is just for tonight. Who's first, who's second, who's third, who's fourth. Yeah. Makes a much bigger difference.
Yeah, so.
What advice would you have to people for doing the contest?
Don't run over time.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big one.
The biggest advice is don't be a dick. This is my advice for comedy. First of all, I have weird advice for this. Not even weird, but just a lot of this is.
Sounds pretty good to me.
Don't be a dick. Don't go over time. And also control your friends. Tell your friends not to fuck it up for you. Because sometimes people, I had that boss where I'm like, come on, man. But it's cool if your friends are all laughing, but also tell them it's a comedy show. And if like I always, when I used to MC, I don't want to make it seem like it was back in the day, literally last year when I stopped emceeing. Like it wasn't even last year. It was like November. When I MC, I would always say, hey, you know, this is a contest. If it's your friend and they're funny, of course, please laugh. If it's your friend and they're not funny, like, get funnier friends. Like, I don't know what to tell you. You should laugh if it's funny.
And don't freeze. You're not going to do anything to change anything by freezing out the other contestants.
Yeah, and it's like this thing where it's like, if there's a certain point where there's like, we can tell when 20 people in one section are all laughing.
Yes, 100%.
So I mean, but that's fine. That's like whatever. People want to support they want to be homers. That's fine. But like, just make sure your friends aren't being dicks and getting kicked out of the club. And so I think that it's that, and it's like, respect people's boundaries backstage. Like I have like, you know, we were talking about participating. I have like so many stories from like being an MC in the contest. Like there was the infamous year. There are so many infamous. One year there was this guy named I don't know if you guys want to bleep this or not, but his name is and he had a teardrop tattoo. And,
I shouldn't have brought him. That was my bad.
Well, when you're at open mic, if it's early enough in the show and you hear too much laughter, you know this is not a superstar new comic. Some shit went down and you want to run in because mess is happening.
Yeah, exactly.
So one time we were all in the bar, it was open mic, we heard like too much laughter, like too much for someone in the 3-minute slot who's not a comic we've heard of. So we didn't have time to hop in, and Derek, who was the manager at the time, comes out and we're like, what happened? He's like, well. So apparently what happened is this guy, and this is when like vaping first started and you could still vape in the club. There's this guy with a teardrop tattoo, and he gets on stage and he's completely like faded. And he does this bit where he wants to like talk about being cold. So he pulls his hand into his shirt sleeve like you might if you're cold, but he didn't let go of the mic cord for some reason. And he also had chains on. So the mic cord got stuck in the chains. He got tangled. The light goes off. He's still over time. He can't get off the stage because he's tangled. His girlfriend had to hop on stage and untangle him. And that was what the laughter was. Right. So then I hear about this and I was like, fantastic. Let me go in. So I get on stage and this is just open mic. And I was like, the guy was sitting in front. I was like, who is the guy who got tangled in the cord? And they're like, this guy here. And he is laying across in the center, like 3 chairs just vaping. And he laughs like this. He goes, hey. And he goes, I go, dude, man, look, I was like, what is wrong with you? And he was like, oh, watch out now. And I was like, man, you couldn't even like fight a microphone. And I like way more than that. What are you going to do to me? And he was like, and I was like, what's a teardrop for? Like, how many mics have you killed? Like, what happened? And so that was that. So that happened. I can tell you when that happened. It happened in like March. It happened in March of whatever year the Boston Marathon bombing happened. And I know that because
was it him?
It was.
That would be quite the twist. It was. He was Jokar Sarnoff or whatever.
It was weird. He had a crock pot at that show.
He made the semis. Hey! That's the weirdest part. He was pretty funny.
Okay, so I skipped that like Boston Marathon thing because I was just like watching news. I just didn't want to go out. Whatever. And bartender Nick tells me the next like day, like I was at the club or something. He's like, hey. That guy with the teardrop tattoo came in for the open mic and he was looking for you. I was like, oh, fuck. And so he never showed up again. I was like, just kind of like head on a swivel lightly. And I was like, surely, hopefully he can take a joke. And I'm like, whatever. So then one day the contest happens and I was emceeing and Tommy Ryman, I think was a feature. He was either feature or the headliner. And so I was like, cool. And I see the list like right before. And then walks in, he goes, well, Brandi Brown. And I was like, fuck. And Tommy Ryman is just confused at the situation at hand. And I'm like, he's like, what? And I was like, I see we meet again. It was like such a weird villain guy thing to do. And I was like, and Tommy, meanwhile, is like just weirded out. Like he has no context for this. And I was like, yeah, some shit happened before Tommy. So then he like had so much alcohol. He had like the giant carafes of like Long Island iced tea. He had like several of those before the show. Don't drink
that much before the contest. That's the other thing.
That's another thing. I've seen someone who's like one of the funniest like women who's just like was like a former stripper, had incredible stories, and then she got completely shit-faced before. I'm like, God damn it, I can't save you. But so he gets on stage for the contest, and he's telling this story. Like, this is the context is you need to know he's black. This will come up later. And he's telling this thing, and he's like, I just want to think, like, black people love Minnesota. He's like, black people, and by the way, I do have this on video because I was taping, and this particular set was like my response afterward needed to be recorded. So he's like, black people love here because you guys have like the best welfare, and he's like, best Section 8, and like it is well known that Minnesota is pretty generous with public assistance. So he gets on stage and he does this, and then he was like talking about like how he had several Xanax, and I was like, oh my God. He was talking about this on stage. I saw how much Long Island Ice, like, saw how many he'd been drinking. I was like, Jesus Christ, he's no way he's gonna watch that light. Of course, blows the light.
Yeah.
Typically,
you can always tell who's gonna blow the light.
Typically, when people blow the light, they blow the light, but you rarely see a mic cut.
Yeah,
a mic was cut, and so I get on stage and I just go, he's not gonna win, guys. Like, spoiler, he's not gonna win. And then I was like, but also on behalf of all black people, like that. No, he is not speaking for any of us. Like, he is speaking for himself. So there was him, and then another year, I drink Goose Island ale in a bottle, and so I typically will not leave my drink out, but I would put it on the table in the small alcove right off stage. So there is like the green room, and then there's a small alcove, and then there's the stage.
And you basically have to be a comic to be in the little alcove.
You're not there. So I'm drinking this Goose Island afterwards, and then I get to the bottom of it, and something hits my lips, and I was like, what the fuck? And it was a snooze pack, and I was like, what the fuck? And so I just start like it was during the show, and I was like, I'm like, what the hell? So I was like, how could this happen? And I was trying to say, I was like, like it could be the distributor, like something happened. Like, this is such a weird, like, I don't, like, my drink was never out of my control. And so I thought about it, and I was driving home, and I thought about it, I'm like, oh, there is one point where it was out of control. It was where on the table, right outside the thing, there were 2 contestants that night. So I knew who they were. I got the list of their names, and I was like, what the fuck happened? And I know it wasn't malicious, but I was like, one guy was drinking had a bottle. He probably picked it up in the dark and spit into it. And I was
Thought it was his, probably.
Again, I didn't drink Goose Island after that. So so I emailed
I wouldn't
them.
drink liquid after that.
Yeah, I saw, like, I drank, there was a period where I only would drink glasses. And so I messaged them, and I was like, hey, again, I was feeling really chill. I'm like, hey, I'm just trying to get to the bottom of this, just because if it had been a Goose Island thing, I kind of did want to know. And so I was like, hey, do you chew? Do you have chew snooze? Because, like, you're backstage, and and there were only two of you, and he was like, yeah. And I was like, yeah, I think you like picked up the wrong bottle and spit into it. I'm like, whatever, it happens. Like, it was really like, I wasn't like, whatever, just be more. I was like, just be more careful. And he gave the exact, he's like, how do you know it was me? And he was just like, went off. He's like, oh, you're CSI detective. I bet you're the reason why I lost. And I'm like, dude.
He blamed you for losing after he spit his snooze packet into your bottle?
First of all, he goes, how do you know? You've never even met me. I was like, there were only 2. I'm like, did you accuse it? I'm like, no, because I deduced it was not this guy. You had a bottle. I'm like, it's not that serious. He's like, we've only met once. We met at Joke Joint. I'm like, I haven't been to Joke Joint in a while. That's Shannon Paul, so strike 2. And then he was just like being, he's like, I'm like, I am not responsible for judging. I was just like, the judging happened before I figured out what happened. No, it wasn't you. And then I just wrote, but honestly, you deserve to lose now for this. And like, I was like, I was just trying to see who it was. Like, I'm not mad. And he goes, well, you should watch. And this is where I lost my shit. He goes, you should watch where you put your drink. And I just wrote, you came to my office and fucked up. Like, I literally wrote that. And I was like, shut up. I'm like, here's what you are not going to do. I'm like, here's what you're not going to do. You're not going to walk up in my office and talk to me like that, where I was just explaining to you, hey, this happened, because I was just trying to figure out what happened, but you're going to be a dick about it. It's like, fuck you. Like, I have the email somewhere. It was on Facebook, but he was a complete dick about that.
And that man was the Boston Marathon bomber. No.
But the thing that people often remember when we're talking about contestants being ridiculous is your ribs story.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll tell this real quick. We'll wrap it up.
Yeah.
I was, because when you're hosting, the green room is our space. And now, by the way, I don't know if you know this, the contestants don't go to the green room anymore. Now they come up to the audience, which is chef's kiss.
I think
exactly.
they got kicked out of the green room like years ago, that they couldn't be in there until immediately before the show. Yeah,
exactly. But for a while, it was just more like, hey, you can hang out here for a bit, and I think I hung out in the green room for like most of my time, Yeah, I had ordered ribs, and I came back in, and one of the contestants was walking out licking barbecue sauce off his fingers, and there's just a plate of bones in there, and I just turned to him and I go, "Did you just eat my ribs?" And he said, "I thought they were for everybody."
Which honestly, fair. I mean, they brought it's like craft services. Like that is not. It is egregious as like a young comic because you're hungry as shit all the time, but like that's an understandable mistake. So I guess if I were gonna reset my rules for the contest, like one, like these are just general comedy rules. The staff is more important than the comics. Like be kind to everyone, but the staff will save your ass. They will like tip them well when you can, even if you're getting free stuff. And if you're super
tip
broke,
if you're getting free stuff.
If you're super broke and you need to tip at the end of the week, do that. But tell them like they understand. They know how broke you are. They know a lot about you. But always just be kind to the staff. You never know. That's just general. Be like there's that. When you're in the contest, don't run the light. And when it's like time stuff out and practice, have fun up there. I mean, everyone says that, but just like relax. People aren't gonna heckle you. The MC should make sure you're not being heckled, and if you are being heckled, the MC will lay into whoever. Don't be a dick to other comics backstage. Don't be a dick to comics, even if you're in comedy. Like, unless there are some people you should be dicks to, but you'll
find out.
When
You'll
you regularly come, we'll debrief you.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's on the next premium level of comedy. But yeah, just be chill backstage. Like, it's a lot. We understand you're new. We're not expecting like a Dave Chappelle or like the next big thing to come through at a young age or something like that. Yeah, and I think that like the hardest. I think that don't worry about other people. Like, comedy is a lot of arbitrary bullshit. Like, people like what they like, and they don't like, and it's not necessarily about you. But people do not like assholes, so just don't be an asshole. And don't eat the food backstage unless you are told you could eat it. And you know what?
Spit your snooze packet into any random bottle.
And you know what? If you don't know something, just ask someone. No one's ever yelled at someone for asking before.
That's true. Great advice. Well, Brandi Brown, thank you so much,
thank you so much
for coming down for
me.
doing this.
Yeah.
And I look forward to this year in the contest. Hopefully, we'll see some more goofy stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks so much. And
right.
come out to Acme and see Brandi Brown,
All right,
everybody.
bye.
We'll see you next time.